Section 31 of English Synonyms and Antonyms. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Lenny. English Synonyms and Antonyms by James Champlin Fernald. Garrulous to grief. Garrulous. Synonyms: chattering, loquacious, talkative, verbose. Garrulous signifies given to constant trivial talking. Chattering signifies uttering rapid, noisy, and unintelligible or scarcely intelligible sounds, whether articulate words or such as resemble them. Chattering is often used of vocal sounds that may be intelligible by themselves, but are ill understood owing to confusion of many voices or other cause. The talkative person has a strong disposition to talk, with or without an abundance of words, or many ideas. The loquacious person has an abundant flow of language, and much to say on any subject suggested. Either may be lively and for a time entertaining. The garrulous person is tedious, repetitious, petty, and self-absorbed. Verbose is applied to utterances more formal than conversation, as to writings or public addresses. We speak of a chattering monkey, or a chattering idiot, a talkative child, a talkative or loquacious woman, a garrulous old man, a verbose writer. Compare circumlocution. Antonyms: laconic, reserved, reticent, silent, speechless, taciturn. Gender. Synonym: sex. Sex is a distinction among living beings. It is also the characteristic by which most living beings are distinguished from inanimate things, which are of no sex. Gender is a distinction in language partially corresponding to this distinction in nature. While there are but two sexes, there are in some languages, as in English and German, three genders. The French language has but two genders, and makes the names of all inanimate objects either masculine or feminine. Some languages are without the distinction of gender, and those that maintain it are often quite arbitrary in its application. We speak of the masculine or feminine gender, the male or female sex. General. Synonyms: common, commonplace, customary, everyday, familiar, frequent, habitual, normal, ordinary, popular, prevalent, public, universal, usual. Common signifies frequently occurring, not out of the regular course, not exceptional, hence not above the average, not excellent or distinguished, inferior, or even low. Common also signifies pertaining to or participated in by two or more persons or things, as sorrow is common to the race. General may signify pertaining equally to all of a class, race, etc., but very commonly signifies pertaining to the greater number, but not necessarily to all. Universal applies to all without exception. General applies to all with possible or comparatively slight exceptions. Common applies to very many, without deciding whether they are even a majority. A common remark is one we often hear. A general experience is one that comes to the majority of people. A universal experience is one from which no human being is exempt. It is dangerous for a debater to affirm a universal proposition, since that can be negatived by a single exception, while a general statement is not invalidated even by adducing many exceptions. We say a common opinion, common experience, a general rule, general truth, a universal law. Compare synonyms for normal, usual. Antonyms: exceptional, infrequent, rare, singular, uncommon, unknown, unusual. Generous. Synonyms: bountiful, chivalrous, disinterested, free, free-handed, free-hearted, liberal, magnanimous, munificent, noble, open-handed, open-hearted. Generous, from Latin genus, a race, primarily signifies having the qualities worthy of noble or honorable birth, hence free and abundant in giving, giving freely, heartily, and self-sacrificingly. As regards giving, generous refers rather to the self-sacrificing heartiness of the giver, liberal to the amount of the gift. A child may show himself generous in the gift of an apple. A millionaire makes a liberal donation. A generous gift, however, is commonly thought of as both ample and hearty. A munificent gift is vast in amount, whatever the motive of its bestowal. One may be free with another's money; he can be generous only with his own. Disinterested suggests rather the thought of one's own self-denial; generous, of one's hearty interest in another's welfare or happiness. One is magnanimous by a greatness of soul, from Latin magnus, great, and animus, soul, that rises above all that is poor, mean, or weak, especially above every petty or ignoble motive or feeling pertaining to one's self, and thus above resentment of injury or insult. One is generous by a kindness of heart that would rejoice in the welfare rather than in the punishment of the offender. Antonyms: avaricious, close, covetous, greedy, ignoble, illiberal, mean, miserly, niggardly, parsimonious, penurious, petty, rapacious, stingy. Genius. Synonyms: talent, talents. Genius is exalted intellectual power, capable of operating independently of tuition and training, and marked by an extraordinary faculty for original creation, invention, discovery, expression, etc. Talent is marked mental ability, and, in a special sense, a particular and uncommon aptitude for some special mental work or attainment. Genius is higher than talent, more spontaneous, less dependent upon instruction, less amenable to training. Talent is largely the capacity to learn, acquire, appropriate, adapt oneself to demand. Yet the genius that has won the largest and most enduring success has been joined with tireless industry and painstaking. Compare synonyms for mind, power. Antonyms: dullness, folly, imbecility, obtuseness, senselessness, stupidity. Get. Synonyms: achieve, acquire, attain, earn, gain, obtain, procure, receive, secure, win. Get is a most comprehensive word. A person gets whatever he comes to possess or experience, whether with or without endeavor, expectation, or desire. He gets a bargain, a blow, a fall, a fever. He gains what he comes to by effort or striving. The swimmer gains the shore. A man acquires by continuous and ordinarily by slow process, as one acquires a foreign language. A person is sometimes said to gain and often to acquire what has not been an object of direct endeavor. In the pursuits of trade he incidentally gains some knowledge of foreign countries. He acquires by association with others a correct or incorrect accent. He acquires a bronzed complexion by exposure to a tropical sun. In such use, what he gains is viewed as desirable, what he acquires as slowly and gradually resulting. A person earns what he gives an equivalent of labor for, though he may not get it. On the other hand, he may get what he has not earned. The temptation to all dishonesty is the desire to get a living or a fortune without earning it. When one gets the object of his desire, he is said to obtain it, whether he has gained or earned it or not. Win denotes contest, with a suggestion of chance or hazard. In popular language, a person is often said to win a lawsuit, or to win in a suit at law, but in legal phrase he is said to gain his suit, case, or cause. In receiving, one is strictly passive. He may get an estate by his own exertions or by inheritance. In the latter case, he is said to receive it. One obtains a thing commonly by some direct effort of his own. He procures it commonly by the intervention of someone else. He procures a dinner or an interview. He secures what has seemed uncertain or elusive, when he gets it firmly into his possession or under his control. Compare synonyms for attain, make, reach. Antonyms. See synonyms for abandon. Gift. Synonyms: benefaction, bequest, boon, bounty, bribe, donation, grant, gratuity, largesse, present. A gift is, in the popular and also in the legal sense, that which is voluntarily bestowed without expectation of return or compensation. Gift is now almost always used in the good sense, bribe always in the evil sense, to signify payment for a dishonorable service under the semblance of a gift. In scriptural language, gift is often used for bribe. The king by judgment establisheth the land, but he that receiveth gifts overthroweth it. Proverbs 29:4. A benefaction is a charitable gift, generally of large amount, and viewed as of enduring value, as an endowment for a college. A donation is something, perhaps of great, never of trivial value, given usually on some public ground, as to a cause, or to a person representing a cause, but not necessarily of value beyond the immediate present, as a donation to a pastor. A gratuity is usually something of moderate value, and is always given as to an inferior, and as a favor, not of right, as a gratuity to a waiter. Largesse is archaic for a bountiful gratuity, usually to be distributed among many, as among the heralds at ancient tournaments. A present is a gift of friendship or conciliation, and given as to an equal or a superior. No one's pride is hurt by accepting what is viewed as strictly a present. A boon is a gift that has been desired or craved, or perhaps asked, or something freely given that meets some great desire. A grant is commonly considerable in amount, and given by public authority, as a grant of public lands for a college. Antonyms: compensation, earnings, guerdon, penalty, remuneration, wages. Give. Synonyms: bestow, cede, communicate, confer, deliver, furnish, grant, impart, supply. To give is primarily to transfer to another's possession or ownership without compensation. In its secondary sense, in popular use, it is to put into another's possession by any means and on any terms whatever. A buyer may say, "Give me the goods, and I will give you the money." We speak of giving answers, information, etc., and often of giving what is not agreeable to the recipient, as blows, medicine, reproof. But when there is nothing in the context to indicate the contrary, give is always understood in its primary sense, as "this book was given me." Give thus becomes, like get, a term of such general import as to be a synonym for a wide variety of words. To grant is to put into one's possession in some formal way, or by authoritative act, as Congress grants lands to a railroad corporation. To speak of granting a favor carries a claim or concession of superiority on the part of the one by whom the grant may be made. To confer has a similar sense, as to confer a degree or an honor. We grant a request or petition, but do not confer it. To impart is to give of that which one still, to a greater or less degree, retains. The teacher imparts instruction. To bestow is to give that of which the receiver stands in special need. We bestow alms. Prepositions: we give money to a person, for a thing, for a purpose, etc. Or, without preposition, give a person a sum of money. We give a thing to or into one's care or keeping. The wary fugitive gave himself up to his pursuers. Govern. Synonyms: command, control, curb, direct, influence, manage, mold, reign, reign over, restrain, rule, sway. Govern carries the idea of authoritative administration or some exercise of authority that is at once effective and continuous. Control is effective, but may be momentary or occasional. One controls what he holds or can hold at will absolutely in check, as a skillful horseman controls a spirited horse. A person controls his temper. We say to one who is excited, "Control yourself." A person commands another when he has, or claims, the right to make that other do his will, with power of inflicting penalty if not obeyed. He controls another whom he can effectually prevent from doing anything contrary to his will. He governs one whom he actually does cause, regularly or constantly, to obey his will. A parent may command a child whom he cannot govern or control. The best teachers are not greatly prone to command, but govern or control their pupils largely by other means. Command is, however, often used in the sense of securing, as well as requiring, submission or obedience, as when we speak of a commanding influence. A man commands the situation when he can shape events as he pleases. A fortress commands the region when no enemy can pass against its resistance. Govern implies the exercise of knowledge and judgment, as well as power. To rule is more absolute and autocratic than to govern. To sway is to move by quiet but effectual influence. To mold is not only to influence feeling and action, but to shape character. To manage is to secure by skillful contrivance the doing of one's will by those whom one cannot directly control. A wise mother, by gentle means, sways the feelings and molds the lives of her children. To be able to manage servants is an important element of good housekeeping. The word reign, once so absolute, now simply denotes that one holds the official station of sovereign in a monarchy, with or without effective power. The Queen of England reigns. The Czar of Russia both reigns and rules. Antonyms: be in subjection, be subject, comply, obey, submit, yield. Graceful. Synonym: beautiful. That which is graceful is marked by elegance and harmony, with ease of action, attitude, or posture, or delicacy of form. Graceful commonly suggests motion or the possibility of motion. Beautiful may apply to absolute fixity. A landscape or a blue sky is beautiful, but neither is graceful. Graceful commonly applies to beauty as addressed to the eye, though we often speak of a graceful poem or a graceful compliment. Graceful applies to the perfection of motion, especially of the lighter motions, which convey no suggestion of stress or strain, and are in harmonious curves. Apart from the thought of motion, graceful denotes a pleasing harmony of outline, proportion, etc., with a certain degree of delicacy. A Hercules is massive, and Apollo is graceful. We speak of a graceful attitude, graceful drapery. Compare beautiful, becoming. Antonyms. See synonyms for awkward. Grief. Synonyms: affliction, distress, melancholy, mourning, regret, sadness, sorrow, tribulation, trouble, woe. Grief is acute mental pain resulting from loss, misfortune, or deep disappointment. Grief is more acute and less enduring than sorrow. Sorrow and grief are for definite cause. Sadness and melancholy may arise from a vague sense of want or loss, from a low state of health, or other ill-defined cause. Sadness may be momentary. Melancholy is more enduring and may become chronic. Affliction expresses a deep heart sorrow, and is applied also to the misfortune producing such sorrow. Mourning most frequently denotes sorrow publicly expressed, or the public expression of such sorrow as may reasonably be expected; as, it is common to observe 30 days of mourning on the death of an officer of state. Antonyms. See synonyms for happiness. Prepositions: grief at a loss, for a friend. End of section 31.
Section 32 of English Synonyms and Antonyms. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, visit LibriVox.org. English Synonyms and Antonyms by James Champlin Fernald. Habit, to harvest. Habit. Synonyms: custom, fashion, habitude, practice, routine, rule, system, usage, use, want. Habit is a tendency or inclination toward an action or condition, which by repetition has become easy, spontaneous, or even unconscious, or an action or regular series of actions, or a condition so induced. Custom is the uniform doing of the same act in the same circumstance for a definite reason. Routine is the doing of customary acts in a regular and uniform sequence, and is more mechanical than custom. It is the custom of tradesmen to open at a uniform hour, and to follow a regular routine of business until closing time. Habit always includes an involuntary tendency, natural or acquired, greatly strengthened by frequent repetition of the act, and may be uncontrollable, or even unconscious. Habitude is habitual relation or association. Custom is chiefly used of the action of many, habit of the action of one. We speak of the customs of society, the habits of an individual. Fashion is the generally recognized custom in the smaller matters, especially in dress. A rule is prescribed either by some external authority or by one's own will, as "it is the rule of the house," or "I make it my invariable rule." System is the coordination of many acts or things into a unity, and is more and better than routine. Use and usage denote the manner of using something. We speak of one person's use of language, but of the usage of many. A use or usage is almost always a habit. Practice is the active doing of something in a systematic way. We do not speak of the practice, but of the habit of going to sleep. We speak of a tradesman's custom, a lawyer's or a physician's practice. Educationally, practice is the voluntary and persistent attempt to make skill a habit, as practice in penmanship. Want is blind and instinctive habit, like that which attaches an animal to a locality. The word is now almost wholly poetic. Compare dress. Happen. Synonyms: bechance, befall, betide, chance, come to pass, fall, fall out, occur, supervene, take place. A thing is said to happen when no design is manifest, or none especially thought of. It is said to chance when it appears to be the result of accident. Compare synonyms for accident. An incident happens or occurs. Something external or actual happens to me. A thought or fancy occurs to him. Befall and betide are transitive. Happen is intransitive. Something befalls or betides a person, or happens to him. Betide is especially used for anticipated evil, thought of as waiting and coming at its appointed time, as woe betide him. One event supervenes upon another event, one disease upon another, etc. Transpire, in the sense of happen, is not authorized by good usage. A thing that has happened is properly said to transpire when it becomes known. Prepositions: an event happens to a person. A person happens on or upon a fact, discovery, etc. Happiness. Synonyms: blessedness, bliss, cheer, comfort, contentment, delight, ecstasy, enjoyment, felicity, gaiety, gladness, gratification, joy, merriment, mirth, pleasure, rapture, rejoicing, satisfaction, triumph. Gratification is the giving any mental or physical desire something that it craves. Satisfaction is the giving such a desire all that it craves. Happiness is the positively agreeable experience that springs from the possession of good, the gratification or satisfaction of the desires, or the relief from pain and evil. Comfort may be almost wholly negative, being found in security or relief from that which pains or annoys. There is comfort by a warm fireside on a wintry night. The sympathy of a true friend affords comfort in sorrow. Enjoyment is more positive, always implying something to be definitely and consciously delighted in. A sick person finds comfort in relief from pain, while he may be far from a state of enjoyment. Pleasure is still more vivid, being an arousing of the faculties to an intensely agreeable activity. Satisfaction is more tranquil than pleasure, being the agreeable consciousness of having all that our faculties demand or crave. When a worthy pleasure is past, a worthy satisfaction remains. As referring to a mental state, gratification is used to denote a mild form of happiness resulting from some incident not of very great importance. Satisfaction should properly express a happiness deeper, more complete, and more abiding. But as intellect or sensibilities of a low order may find satisfaction in that which is very poor or unworthy, the word has come to be feeble and tame in ordinary use. Happiness is more positive than comfort, enjoyment, or satisfaction, more serene and rational than pleasure. Pleasure is of necessity transient. Happiness is abiding and may be eternal. Thus we speak of pleasures, but the plural of happiness is scarcely used. Happiness, in the full sense, is mental or spiritual or both, and is viewed as resulting from some worthy gratification or satisfaction. We may speak of a brute as experiencing comfort or pleasure, but scarcely as in possession of happiness. We speak of vicious pleasure, delight, or joy, but not of vicious happiness. Felicity is a philosophical term, colder and more formal than happiness. Gladness is happiness that overflows, expressing itself in countenance, voice, manner, and action. Joy is more intense than happiness, deeper than gladness, to which it is akin, nobler and more enduring than pleasure. Gaiety is more superficial than joy, more demonstrative than gladness. Rejoicing is happiness or joy that finds utterance in word, song, festivity, etc. Delight is vivid, overflowing happiness of a somewhat transient kind. Ecstasy is a state of extreme or extravagant delight, so that the one affected by it seems almost beside himself with joy. Rapture is closely allied to ecstasy, but is more serene, exalted, and enduring. Triumph is such joy as results from victory, success, achievement. Blessedness is at once the state and the sense of being divinely blessed, as the blessedness of the righteous. Bliss is ecstatic, perfected happiness, as the bliss of heaven. Compare comfort. Antonyms: see synonyms for grief. Happy. Synonyms: blessed, blissful, blithe, blithesome, bright, buoyant, cheerful, cheering, cheery, delighted, delightful, dexterous, felicitous, fortunate, gay, glad, jocund, jolly, joyful, joyous, lucky, merry, mirthful, pleased, prosperous, rapturous, rejoiced, rejoicing, smiling, sprightly, successful, sunny. Happy primarily refers to something that comes by good hap, a chance that brings prosperity, benefit, or success. Quote, and grasps the skirts of happy chance. Close quote. Tennyson, In Memoriam, 63, stanza 2. In this sense, happy is closely allied to fortunate and lucky. See fortunate. Happy has, however, so far diverged from this original sense as to apply to advantages where chance is not recognized, or is even excluded by direct reference to the divine will, when it becomes almost equivalent to blessed. Quote, "Behold, happy is the man whom God correcteth." Close quote. Job 5:17. Happy is also applied to the ready dexterity or skill by which favorable results, usually in minor matters, are secured, when it becomes a synonym for dexterous, felicitous, and the associated words; as, he has a happy wit, happy at retort, compare clever. In its most frequent present use, happy is applied to the state of one enjoying happiness, or to that by which happiness is expressed, as a happy heart, a happy face, happy laughter, happy tears. Compare synonyms for happiness. Cheerful applies to the possession or expression of a moderate and tranquil happiness. A cheery word spontaneously gives cheer to others. A cheering word is more distinctly planned to cheer and encourage. Gay applies to an effusive and superficial happiness, often not really worthy of that name, perhaps resulting largely from abundant animal spirits. We speak of gay revelers, or a gay horse. A buoyant spirit is, as it were, borne up by joy and hope. A sunny disposition has a constant tranquil brightness that irradiates all who come within its influence. Antonyms. Compare synonyms for grief. Prepositions: a happy event for him, happy at a reply, happy in his home, with his friends, among his children, happy at the discovery, over his success. Harmony. Synonyms: accord, accordance, agreement, amity, concord, concurrence, conformity, congruity, consent, consistency, consonance, symmetry, unanimity, uniformity, union, unison, unity. When tones, thoughts, or feelings, individually different, combine to form a consistent and pleasing whole, there is harmony. Harmony is deeper and more essential than agreement. We may have a superficial, forced, or patched up agreement, but never a superficial, forced, or patched up harmony. Concord is less full and spiritual than harmony. Concord implies more volition than accord, as their views were found to be in perfect accord, or by conference concord was secured. We do not secure accord, but discover it. We may speak of being in accord with a person on one point, but harmony is wider in range. Conformity is correspondence in form, manner, or use. The word often signifies submission to authority or necessity, and may be as far as possible from harmony, as the attempt to secure conformity to an established religion. Congruity involves the element of suitableness. Consistency implies the absence of conflict or contradiction in views, statements, or acts which are brought into comparison, as in the different statements of the same person, or the different periods of one man's life. Unanimity is the complete, hearty agreement of many. Consent and concurrence refer to decision or action, but consent is more passive than concurrence. One speaks by general consent when no one in the assembly cares to make formal objection. A decision of the Supreme Court depends upon the concurrence of a majority of the judges. Compare agree, friendship, melody. Antonyms: antagonism, battle, conflict, contention, contest, controversy, difference, disagreement, discord, disproportion, dissension, disunion, hostility, incongruity, inconsistency, opposition, schism, separation, variance, warfare. Harvest. Synonyms: crop, fruit, growth, harvest feast, harvest festival, harvest home, harvesting, harvest tide, harvest time, increase, ingathering, proceeds, produce, product, reaping, result, return, yield. Harvest, from the Anglo-Saxon, signified originally autumn, and as that is the usual season of gathering ripened crops in northern lands, the word came to its present meaning of the season of gathering ripened grain or fruits, whether summer or autumn, and hence a crop gathered or ready for gathering. Also, the act or process of gathering a crop or crops. Quote, "The harvest truly is great, but the laborers are few." Close quote, Luke 10:2. Quote, "Lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are white already to harvest." Close quote, John 4:35. Harvest is the elegant and literary word. Crop is the common and commercial expression. We say that a man sells his crop, but we should not speak of his selling his harvest. We speak of an ample or abundant harvest, a good crop. Harvest is applied almost wholly to grain. Crop applies to almost anything that is gathered in. We speak of the potato crop, not the potato harvest. We may say either the wheat crop or the wheat harvest. Produce is a collective word for all that is produced in farming or gardening, and is, in modern usage, almost wholly restricted to this sense. We speak of produce collectively, but of a product or various products. Vegetables, fruits, eggs, butter, etc., may be termed farm produce, or the products of the farm. Product is a word of wider application than produce. We speak of the products of manufacturing, the products of thought, or the product obtained by multiplying one number by another. The word proceeds is chiefly used of the return from an investment. We speak of the produce of a farm, but of the proceeds of the money invested in farming. The yield is what the land gives up to the farmer's demand. We speak of the return from an expenditure of money or labor, but of the yield of corn or oats. Harvest has also a figurative sense, such as crop more rarely permits. We term a religious revival a harvest of souls. The result of lax enforcement of law is a harvest of crime. As regards time, harvest, harvest tide, and harvest time alike denote the period or season when the crops are or should be gathered, tide being simply the old Saxon word for time. Harvest home ordinarily denotes the festival of harvest, and when used to denote simply the season always gives a suggestion of festivity and rejoicing, such as harvest and harvest time by themselves do not express. End of section 32, read by DSayers in Modesto, California, for LibriVox.
Of English Synonyms and Antonyms. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Estelle Jobson. English Synonyms and Antonyms by James Champlin Fernald, From Hatred to High. Hatred. Synonyms: abhorrence, anger, animosity, antipathy, aversion, detestation, dislike, enmity, grudge, hate, hostility, ill will, malevolence, malice, malignity, rancor, repugnance, resentment, revenge, spite. Repugnance applies to that which one feels himself summoned or impelled to do or to endure, and from which he instinctively draws back. Aversion is the turning away of the mind or feelings from some person or thing, or from some course of action, etc. Hate or hatred, as applied to persons, is intense and continued aversion, usually with disposition to injure. Anger is sudden and brief. Hatred is lingering and enduring. Her wrath became a hate. Tennyson, Peleus and Etare, stanza 16. As applied to things, hatred is intense aversion, with desire to destroy or remove. Hatred of evil is a righteous passion, akin to abhorrence, but more vehement. Malice involves the active intent to injure. In the legal sense, malice is the intent to injure, even though with no personal ill will, as a highwayman would be said to entertain malice toward the unknown traveler whom he attacks. Malice is direct, pressing toward a result. Malignity is deep, lingering, and venomous, though often impotent to act. Rancor, akin to rancid, is cherished malignity that has soured and festered and is virulent and implacable. Spite is petty malice that delights to inflict stinging pain. Grudge is deeper than spite. It is sinister and bitter. Grudge, resentment, and revenge are all retaliatory. Grudge being the disposition, revenge the determination to repay real or supposed offense with injury. Revenge may denote also the retaliatory act. Resentment, the best word of the three, always holds itself to be justifiable, but looks less certainly to action than grudge or revenge. Simple goodness may arouse the hatred of the wicked. They will be moved to revenge only by what they deem an injury or affront. Compare abomination, anger, antipathy, enmity. Antonyms: see synonyms for friendship, love. Have. Synonyms: be in possession of, be possessed of, hold, occupy, own, possess. Have is the most general word, and is applied to whatever belongs to or is connected with one. A man has a head or a headache, a fortune or an opinion, a friend or an enemy. He has time or has need. He may be said to have what is his own, what he has borrowed, what has been entrusted to him, or what he has stolen. To possess a thing is to have the ownership with control and enjoyment of it. To hold is to have in one's hand or securely in one's control. A man holds his friend's coat for a moment, or he holds a struggling horse. He holds a promissory note, or holds an office. To own is to have the right of property in. To possess is to have that right in actual exercise. To occupy is to have possession and use, with some degree of permanency, with or without ownership. A man occupies his own house or a room in a hotel. A man may own a farm of which he is not in possession, because the tenant occupies it and is determined to hold it. The proprietor owns the property, but the tenant is in possession. To be in possession differs from possess in that to possess denotes both right and fact, while to be in possession denotes simply the fact with no affirmation as to the right. To have reason is to be endowed with the faculty. To be in possession of one's reason denotes that the faculty is in actual present exercise. Hazard. Synonyms: accident, casualty, chance, contingency, danger, fortuity, jeopardy, peril, risk, venture. Hazard is the incurring the possibility of loss or harm for the possibility of benefit. Danger may have no compensating alternative. In hazard, the possibilities of gain or loss are nearly balanced. In risk, the possibility of loss is the chief thought. The foolhardy take great risks in mere wantonness. In chance and venture, the hope of good predominates. We speak of a merchant's venture, but of an insurance company's risk. One may be driven by circumstances to run a risk. He freely seeks a venture. We speak of the chance of winning, the hazard or risk of losing. Accidents are incalculable. Casualties may be to a certain extent anticipated. Death and wounds are casualties of battle, certain to happen to some, but uncertain as to whom or how many. A contingency is simply an indeterminable future event, which may or may not be attended with danger or risk. See accident, danger. Antonyms: assurance, certainty, necessity, plan, protection, safeguard, safety, security, surety. Healthy. Synonyms: hale, healthful, hearty, hygienic, salubrious, salutary, sanitary, sound, strong, vigorous, well, wholesome. Healthy is most correctly used to signify possessing or enjoying health or its results, as a healthy person, a healthy condition. Healthful signifies promotive of health, tending or adapted to confer, preserve, or promote health, as a healthful climate. Wholesome food in a healthful climate makes a healthy man. With healthful are ranged the words hygienic, salubrious, salutary, sanitary, and wholesome, while the other words are associated with healthy. Salubrious is always used in the physical sense, and is chiefly applied to air or climate. Salutary is now chiefly used in the moral sense, as a salutary lesson. Antonyms: delicate, diseased, emaciated, exhausted, failing, fainting, fragile, frail, ill, sick, unhealthy, unsound, wasted, weak, worn, worn down, worn out. Help. Synonyms: abet, aid, assist, befriend, cooperate, encourage, foster, second, stand by, succor, support, sustain, uphold. Help expresses greater dependence and deeper need than aid. In extremity we say, God help me, rather than God aid me. In time of danger we cry, help, help, rather than aid, aid. To aid is to second another's own exertions. We can speak of helping the helpless, but not of aiding them. Help includes aid, but aid may fall short of the meaning of help. In law, to aid or abet makes one a principal. Compare synonyms for accessory. To cooperate is to aid as an equal. To assist implies a subordinate and secondary relation. One assists a fallen friend to rise. He cooperates with him in helping others. Encourage refers to mental aid, as uphold now usually does. Succor and support oftenest to material assistance. We encourage the timid or despondent, succor the endangered, support the weak, uphold those who else might be shaken or cast down. Compare abet, promote. Antonyms: counteract, discourage, oppose, resist, thwart, withstand. Prepositions: help in an enterprise with money, help to success against the enemy. Heretic. Synonyms: dissenter, heresiarch, nonconformist, schismatic. Etymologically, a heretic is one who takes or chooses his own belief, instead of the belief of his church. Hence, a heretic is one who denies commonly accepted views, or holds opinions contrary to the recognized standards or tenets of any established religious, philosophical, or other system, school, or party. The religious sense of the word is the predominant one. A schismatic is primarily one who produces a split or rent in the church. A heretic differs in doctrine from the religious body with which he is connected. Schismatic differs in doctrine or practice, or in both. A heretic may be reticent or even silent. A schismatic introduces divisions. A heresiarch is the author of a heresy or the leader of a heretical party, and is thus at once a heretic and a schismatic. With advancing ideas of religious liberty, the odious sense once attached to these words is largely modified, and heretic is often used playfully. Dissenter and nonconformist are terms specifically applied to English subjects who hold themselves aloof from the Church of England. The former term is extended to non-adherents of the established church in some other countries, as Russia. Heterogeneous. Synonyms: confused, conglomerate, discordant, dissimilar, mingled, miscellaneous, mixed, non-homogeneous, unhomogeneous, unlike, variant, various. Substances quite unlike are heterogeneous as regards each other. A heterogeneous mixture is one whose constituents are not only unlike in kind, but unevenly distributed. Cement is composed of substances such as lime, sand, and clay, which are heterogeneous as regards each other, but the cement is said to be homogeneous if the different constituents are evenly mixed throughout, so that any one portion of the mixture is exactly like any other. A substance may fail of being homogeneous and yet not be heterogeneous, in which case it is said to be non-homogeneous or unhomogeneous. A bar of iron that contains flaws, air bubbles, etc., for any other reason, is not of uniform structure and density throughout, though no foreign substance be mixed with the iron, is said to be non-homogeneous. A miscellaneous mixture may or may not be heterogeneous if the objects are alike in kind, but different in size, form, quality, use, etc., and without special order or relation. The collection is miscellaneous. If the objects differ in kind, such a mixture is also and more strictly heterogeneous. A pile of unassorted lumber is miscellaneous. The contents of a schoolboy's pocket are commonly miscellaneous, and might usually be termed heterogeneous as well. See complex. Antonyms: alike, homogeneous, identical, like, pure, same, similar, uniform. Hide. Synonyms: bury, cloak, conceal, cover, disguise, dissemble, entomb, inter, mask, overwhelm, screen, secrete, suppress, veil. Hide is the general term, including all the rest, signifying to put out of sight or beyond ready observation or approach. A thing may be hidden by intention, by accident, or by the imperfection of the faculties of the one from whom it is hidden. In their games, children hide the slipper, or hide themselves from each other. A man unconsciously hides a picture from another by standing before it, or hides a thing from himself by laying something else over it. Even an unconscious object may hide another, as a cloud hides the sun, or a building hides some part of the prospect by intervening between it and the observer's position. As an act of persons, to conceal is always intentional. One may hide his face in anger, grief, or abstraction. He conceals his face when he fears recognition. A house is hidden by foliage. The bird's nest is artfully concealed. Secrete is a stronger word than conceal, and is used chiefly of such material objects as may be separated from the person, or from their ordinary surroundings, and put in unlooked-for places. A man conceals a scar on his face, but does not secrete it. A thief secretes stolen goods. An officer may also be said to secrete himself to watch the thief. A thing is covered by putting something over or around it, whether by accident or design. It is screened by putting something before it, always with some purpose of protection from observation, inconvenience, attack, censure, etc. In the figurative use, a person may hide honorable feelings. He conceals an evil or hostile intent. Anything which is effectually covered and hidden under any mass or accumulation is buried. Money is buried in the ground. A body is buried in the sea. A paper is buried under other documents. Whatever is buried is hidden or concealed, but there are many ways of hiding or concealing a thing without burying it. So a person may be covered with wraps and not buried under them. Bury may be used of any object, entomb and inter only of a dead body. Figuratively, one may be said to be buried in business, in study, etc. Compare immerse, palliate. Antonyms: admit, advertise, avow, betray, confess, disclose, discover, disinter, divulge, exhibit, exhume, expose, lay bare, lay open, make known, reveal, manifest, promulgate, publish, raise, show, tell, uncover, unmask, unveil. High. Synonyms: elevated, eminent, exalted, lofty, noble, proud, steep, tall, towering, uplifted. Deep, while an antonym of high in usage, may apply to the very same distance simply measured in an opposite direction. High applying to vertical distance measured from below upward, and deep to vertical distance measured from above downward, as a deep valley nestling between high mountains. High is a relative term signifying greatly raised above any object, base, or surface, in comparison with what is usual, or with some standard. A table is high if it exceeds 30 inches. A hill is not high at 100 feet. That is tall whose height is greatly in excess of its breadth or diameter, and whose actual height is great for an object of its kind, as a tall tree, a tall man, tall grass. That is lofty which is imposing or majestic in height. We term a spire tall with reference to its altitude, or lofty with reference to its majestic appearance. That is elevated which is raised somewhat above its surroundings. That is eminent which is far above them, as an elevated platform, an eminent promontory. In the figurative sense, elevated is less than eminent, and this less than exalted. We speak of high, lofty, or elevated thoughts, aims, etc., in the good sense, but sometimes of high feelings, looks, words, etc., in the invidious sense of haughty or arrogant. A high ambition may be merely selfish. A lofty ambition is worthy and noble. Towering, in the literal sense, compares with lofty and majestic, but in the figurative sense its use is almost always invidious; as, a towering passion. A towering ambition disregards and crushes all opposing considerations, however rational, lovely, or holy. Compare steep. Antonyms: base, deep, degraded, depressed, dwarfed, inferior, low, mean, short, stunted. End of section 33. Recording by Estelle Jobson, Rome, Italy.
Section 34 of English Synonyms and Antonyms. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Kate Mackenzie. English Synonyms and Antonyms by James Champlin Fernald. Hinder to hypothesis. Hinder. Synonyms: baffle, balk, bar, block, check, clog, counteract, delay, embarrass, encumber, foil, frustrate, hamper, impede, interrupt, obstruct, oppose, prevent, resist, retard, stay, stop, thwart. To hinder is to keep from action, progress, motion, or growth, or to make such action, progress, motion, or growth later in beginning or completion than it would otherwise have been. An action is prevented by anything that comes in before it to make it impossible. It is hindered by anything that keeps it from either beginning or ending so soon as it otherwise would, or as expected or intended. It is more common, however, to say that the start is delayed, the progress hindered. An action that is hindered does not take place at the appointed or appropriate time. That which is prevented does not take place at all. To hinder a thing long enough may amount to preventing it. A railroad train may be hindered by a snowstorm from arriving on time. It may by special order be prevented from starting. To retard is simply to make slow by any means whatever. To obstruct is to hinder, or possibly to prevent advance or passage by putting something in the way. To oppose or resist is to hinder, or possibly to prevent, by directly contrary or hostile action, resist being the stronger term and having more suggestion of physical force. Obstructed roads hinder the march of an enemy, though there may be no force strong enough to oppose it. One opposes a measure, a motion, or amendment, or the like. It is a criminal offence to resist an officer in the discharge of his duty. The physical system may resist the attack of disease or the action of a remedy. Compare, conquer, impediment, obstruct. Antonyms. See antonyms for quicken. Prepositions: hinder one in his progress, from acting promptly, by opposition. History. Synonyms: account, annals, archives, autobiography, biography, chronicle, memoir, memorial, muniment, narration, narrative, recital, record, register, story. History is a systematic record of past events. Annals and chronicles relate events with little regard to their relative importance, and with complete subserviency to their succession in time. Annals are yearly records, chronicles follow the order of time. Both necessarily lack emphasis, selection, and perspective. Archives are public records, which may be annals or chronicles, or deeds of property, etc. Memoirs generally record the lives of individuals, or facts pertaining to individual lives. A biography is distinctively a written account of one's personal life and actions. An autobiography is a biography written by the person whose life it records. Annals, archives, chronicles, biographies, and memoirs, and other records furnish the materials of history. History recounts events with careful attention to their importance, their mutual relations, their causes and consequences, selecting and grouping events on the ground of interest or importance. History is usually applied to such an account of events affecting communities and nations, though sometimes we speak of the history of a single eminent life. Compare record. Antonyms. See synonyms for fiction. Holy. Synonyms: blessed, consecrated, devoted, divine, hallowed, sacred, saintly, set apart. Sacred is applied to that which is to be regarded as inviolable on any account, and so is not restricted to divine things. Therefore, in its lower applications it is less than holy. That which is sacred may be made so by institution, decree, or association. That which is holy is so by its own nature, possessing intrinsic moral purity and, in the highest sense, absolute moral perfection. God is holy. His commands are sacred. Holy may be applied also to that which is hallowed, as "the place whereon thou standest is holy ground." Exodus chapter 3, verse 5. In such use holy is more than sacred, as if the very qualities of a spiritual or divine presence were imparted to the place or object. Divine has been used with great looseness, as applying to anything eminent or admirable, in the line either of goodness or of mere power, as to eloquence, music, etc. But there is a commendable tendency to restrict the word to its higher sense, as designating that which belongs to or is worthy of the divine being. Compare perfect, pure. Antonyms: abominable, common, cursed, impure, polluted, secular, unconsecrated, unhallowed, unholy, unsanctified, wicked, worldly. Home. Synonyms: abode, domicile, dwelling, fireside, habitation, hearth, hearthstone, house, ingleside, residence. Abode, dwelling, and habitation are used with little difference of meaning to denote the place where one habitually lives. Abode and habitation belong to the poetic or elevated style. Even dwelling is not used in familiar speech. A person says my house, my home, or more formally, my residence. Home, from the Anglo-Saxon, denoting originally a dwelling, came to mean an endeared dwelling, as the scene of domestic love and happy and cherished family life, a sense to which there is an increasing tendency to restrict the word. Desirably so, since we have other words to denote the mere dwelling place. We say the wretched tenement could not be called home, or the humble cabin was dear to him as the home of his childhood. Home's not merely four square walls, though with pictures hung and gilded. Home is where affection calls, where its shrine the heart has builded. Thus the word comes to signify any place of rest and peace, and especially heaven, as the soul's peaceful and eternal dwelling place. Honest. Synonyms: candid, equitable, fair, faithful, frank, genuine, good, honourable, ingenuous, just, sincere, straightforward, true, trustworthy, trusty, upright. One who is honest, in the ordinary sense, acts or is always disposed to act with careful regard for the rights of others, especially in matters of business or property. One who is honourable scrupulously observes the dictates of personal honour that is higher than any demands of mercantile law or public opinion, and will do nothing unworthy of his own inherent nobility of soul. The honest man does not steal, cheat, or defraud. The honourable man will not take an unfair advantage that would be allowed him, or will make a sacrifice which no one could require of him when his own sense of right demands it. One who is honest in the highest and fullest sense is scrupulously careful to adhere to all known truth and right, even in thought. In this sense, honest differs from honourable as having regard rather to absolute truth and right than to even the highest personal honour. Compare candid, justice. Antonyms: deceitful, dishonest, disingenuous, faithless, false, fraudulent, hypocritical, lying, mendacious, perfidious, traitorous, treacherous, unfaithful, unscrupulous, untrue. Horizontal. Synonyms: even, flat, level, plain, plane. Horizontal signifies in the direction of or parallel to the horizon. For practical purposes, level and horizontal are identical, though level, as the more popular word, is more loosely used of that which has no especially noticeable elevations or inequalities, as a level road. Flat, according to its derivation from the Anglo-Saxon flet, a floor, applies to a surface only, and, in the first and most usual sense, to a surface that is horizontal or level in all directions. A line may be level, a floor is flat. Flat is also applied in a derived sense to any plane surface without irregularities or elevations, as a picture may be painted on the flat surface of a perpendicular wall. Plane applies only to a surface, and is used with more mathematical exactness than flat. The adjective plane, originally the same word as plane, plane, is now rarely used except in the figurative senses, but the original sense appears in the noun, as we speak of a wide plain, plain. We speak of a horizontal line, a flat morass, a level road, a plain, plain, country, a plane, plane, surface, especially in the scientific sense. That which is level may not be even, and that which is even may not be level. A level road may be very rough, a slope may be even. Antonyms: broken, hilly, inclined, irregular, rolling, rough, rugged, slanting, sloping, uneven. Humane. Synonyms: benevolent, benignant, charitable, clement, compassionate, forgiving, gentle, gracious, human, kind, kind-hearted, merciful, pitying, sympathetic, tender, tender-hearted. Human denotes what pertains to mankind, with no suggestion as to its being good or evil, as the human race, human qualities. We speak of human achievements, virtues or excellences, human follies, vices or crimes. Humane denotes what may rightly be expected of mankind at its best in the treatment of sentient beings. A humane enterprise or endeavor is one that is intended to prevent or relieve suffering. The humane man will not needlessly inflict pain upon the meanest thing that lives. A merciful man is disposed to withhold or mitigate the suffering even of the guilty. The compassionate man sympathizes with and desires to relieve actual suffering, while one who is humane would forestall and prevent the suffering which he sees to be possible. Compare mercy, pitiful, pity. Antonyms: see synonyms for barbarous. Hunt. Synonyms: chase, hunting, inquisition, pursuit, search. A hunt may be either the act of pursuing or the act of seeking, or a combination of the two. A chase or pursuit is after that which is fleeing or departing. A search is for that which is hidden. A hunt may be for that which is either hidden or fleeing. A search is a minute and careful seeking, and is especially applied to a locality. We make a search of or through a house, for an object, in which connection it would be colloquial to say a hunt. Hunt never quite loses its association with field sports, where it includes both search and chase. The search till the game is hunted out, and the chase till it is hunted down. Figuratively, we speak of literally pursuits, or of the pursuit of knowledge, a search for reasons, the chase of fame or honor. Hunt, in figurative use, inclines to the unfavorable sense of inquisition, but with more of dash and aggressiveness, as a hunt for heresy. Hypocrisy. Synonyms: affectation, cant, dissimulation, formalism, pharisaism, pietism, pretense, sanctimoniousness, sanctimony, sham. Pretense, from the Latin praetendo, primarily signifies the holding something forward as having certain rights or claims, whether truly or falsely, In the good sense, it is now rarely used except with a negative. As, there can be no pretense that this is due. A false pretense implies the possibility of a true pretense. But, alone and unlimited, pretense commonly signifies the offering of something for what it is not. Hypocrisy is the false pretense of moral excellence, either as a cover for actual wrong, or for the sake of the credit and advantage attaching to virtue. Cant, from the Latin cantus, a song, primarily the sing-song iteration of the language of any party, school, or sect, denotes the mechanical and pretentious use of religious phraseology, without corresponding feeling or character. Sanctimoniousness is the assumption of a saintly manner without a saintly character. As cant is hypocrisy in utterance, so sanctimoniousness is hypocrisy in appearance, as in looks, tones, etc. Pietism, originally a word of good import, is now chiefly used for an unregulated emotionalism. Formalism is an exaggerated devotion to forms, rites, and ceremonies, without corresponding earnestness of heart. Sham, identical in origin with shame, is a trick or device that puts one to shame, or that shamefully disappoints expectation or falsifies appearance. Affectation is in matters of intellect, taste, etc., much what hypocrisy is in morals and religion. Affectation might be termed petty hypocrisy. Compare deception. Antonyms: candor, frankness, genuineness, honesty, ingenuousness, openness, sincerity, transparency, truth, truthfulness. Hypocrite. Synonyms: cheat, deceiver, dissembler, impostor, pretender. A hypocrite, from the Greek hypokrites, one who answers on the stage, an actor, especially a mimic actor, is one who acts a false part or assumes a character other than the real. Deceiver is the most comprehensive term, including all the other words of the group. The deceiver seeks to give false impressions of any matter where he has an end to gain. The dissembler or hypocrite seeks to give false impressions in regard to himself. The dissembler is content if he can keep some base conduct or evil purpose from being discovered. The hypocrite seeks not merely to cover his vices, but to gain credit for virtue. The cheat and impostor endeavor to make something out of those they may deceive. The cheat is the inferior and more mercenary, as the thimble-rig gambler. The impostor may aspire to a fortune or a throne. Compare hypocrisy. Antonyms: the antonyms of hypocrite are to be found only in phrases embodying the adjectives candid, honest, ingenuous, sincere, true, etc. Hypothesis. Synonyms: conjecture, guess, scheme, speculation, supposition, surmise, system, theory. A hypothesis is a statement of what is deemed possibly true, assumed and reasoned upon as if certainly true, with a view of reaching truth not yet surely known. Especially in the sciences, a hypothesis is a comprehensive tentative explanation of certain phenomena, which is meant to include all other facts of the same class, and which is assumed as true till there has been opportunity to bring all related facts into comparison. If the hypothesis explains all the facts, it is regarded as verified. Till then it is regarded as a working hypothesis, that is, one that may answer for present practical purposes. A hypothesis may be termed a comprehensive guess. A guess is a swift conclusion from data directly at hand, and held as probable or tentative, while one confessedly lacks material for absolute certainty. A conjecture is more methodical than a guess, while a supposition is still slower and more settled. A conjecture, like a guess, is preliminary and tentative. A supposition is more nearly final. A surmise is more floating and visionary, and often sinister, as a surmise that a stranger may be a pickpocket. Theory is used of the mental coordination of facts and principles that may or may not prove correct. A machine may be perfect in theory, but useless in fact. Scheme may be used as nearly equivalent to theory, but is more frequently applied to proposed action, and in the sense of a somewhat visionary plan. A speculation may be wholly of the brain, resting upon no facts worthy of consideration. System is the highest of these terms, having most of assurance and fixity. A system unites many facts, phenomena, or doctrines into an orderly and consistent whole. We speak of a system of theology, of the Copernican system of the universe. Compare system. Antonyms: certainty, demonstration, discovery, evidence, fact, proof. End of section 34. Recording by Kate Mackenzie.
Of English Synonyms and Antonyms. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. English Synonyms and Antonyms by James Champlin Fernald. From idea to imagination. Idea. Synonyms: apprehension, archetype, belief, conceit, concept, conception, design, fancy, fantasy, ideal, image, imagination, impression, judgment, model, notion, opinion, pattern, plan, purpose, sentiment, supposition, theory, thought. Idea is in Greek a form or an image. The word signified in early philosophical use the archetype or primal image which the Platonic philosophy supposed to be the model or pattern that existing objects imperfectly embody. This high sense has nearly disappeared from the word idea, and has been largely appropriated by ideal, though something of the original meaning still appears when in theological or philosophical language we speak of the ideas of God. The present popular use of idea makes it to signify any product of mental apprehension or activity considered as an object of knowledge or thought. This coincides with the primitive sense at but a single point, that an idea is mental as opposed to anything substantial or physical. Thus almost any mental product, as a belief, conception, design, opinion, etc., may now be called an idea. Compare fancy, ideal. Antonyms: actuality, fact, reality, substance. Ideal. Synonyms: archetype, idea, model, original, pattern, prototype, standard. An ideal is that which is conceived or taken as the highest type of excellence or ultimate object of attainment. The archetype is the primal form, actual or imaginary, according to which any existing thing is constructed. The prototype has or has had actual existence. In the derived sense, as in metrology, a prototype may not be the original form, but one having equal authority with that as a standard. An ideal may be primal, or may be slowly developed even from failures and by negations. An ideal is meant to be perfect, not merely the thing that has been attained or is to be attained, but the best conceivable thing that could by possibility be attained. The artist's ideal is his own mental image, of which his finished work is but an imperfect expression. The original is the first specimen, good or bad. The original of a master is superior to all copies. The standard may be below the ideal. The ideal is imaginary and ordinarily unattainable. The standard is concrete and ordinarily attainable, being a measure to which all else of its kind must conform, as the standard of weights and measures, of corn or of cotton. The idea of virtue is the mental concept or image of virtue in general. The ideal of virtue is the mental concept or image of virtue in its highest conceivable perfection. Compare example, idea. Antonyms: accomplishment, achievement, act, action, attainment, development, doing, embodiment, execution, fact, incarnation, performance, practice, reality, realization. Idiocy. Synonyms: fatuity, folly, foolishness, imbecility, incapacity, senselessness, stupidity. Idiocy is a state of mental unsoundness amounting almost or quite to total absence of understanding. Imbecility is a condition of mental weakness, which may or may not be as complete as that of idiocy, but is at least such as to incapacitate for the serious duties of life. Incapacity or lack of legal qualification for certain acts necessarily results from imbecility, but may also result from other causes, as from insanity, or from age, sex, etc., as the incapacity of a minor to make a contract. Idiocy or imbecility is weakness of mind, while insanity is disorder or abnormal action of mind. Folly and foolishness denote a want of mental and often of moral balance. Fatuity is sometimes used as equivalent to idiocy, but more frequently signifies conceited and excessive foolishness or folly. Stupidity is dullness and slowness of mental action, which may range all the way from lack of normal readiness to absolute imbecility. Compare insanity. Antonyms: acuteness, astuteness, brilliancy, capacity, common sense, intelligence, sagacity, sense, soundness, wisdom. Idle. Synonyms: inactive, indolent, inert, lazy, slothful, sluggish, trifling, unemployed, unoccupied, vacant. Idle in all uses rests upon its root meaning, as derived from the Anglo-Saxon idel, which signifies vain, empty, useless. Idle thus denotes not primarily the absence of action, but vain action, the absence of useful, effective action. The idle schoolboy may be very actively whittling his desk or tormenting his neighbors. Doing nothing whatever is the secondary meaning of idle. One may be temporarily idle of necessity. If he is habitually idle, it is his own fault. Lazy signifies indisposed to exertion, averse to labor. Idleness is in fact, laziness is in disposition or inclination. A lazy person may chance to be employed in useful work, but he acts without energy or impetus. We speak figuratively of a lazy stream. The inert person seems like dead matter, characterized by inertia, powerless to move. The sluggish moves heavily and toilsomely. The most active person may sometimes find the bodily or mental powers sluggish. Slothful belongs in the moral realm, denoting a self-indulgent aversion to exertion. The slothful hideth his hand in his bosom; it grieveth him to bring it again to his mouth. Proverbs 26:15. Indolent is a milder term for the same quality. The slothful man hates action; the indolent man loves inaction. Compare VAIN. Antonyms: active, busy, diligent, employed, industrious, occupied, working. Ignorant. Synonyms: ill-informed, illiterate, uneducated, unenlightened, uninformed, uninstructed, unlearned, unlettered, unskilled, untaught, untutored. Ignorance signifies destitute of education or knowledge, or lacking knowledge or information. It is thus a relative term. The most learned man is still ignorant of many things. Persons are spoken of as ignorant who have not the knowledge that has become generally diffused in the world. The ignorant savage may be well instructed in matters of the field and the chase, and is thus more properly untutored than ignorant. Illiterate is without letters and the knowledge that comes through reading. Unlettered is similar in meaning to illiterate, but less absolute. The unlettered man may have acquired the art of reading and writing and some elementary knowledge. The uneducated man has never taken any systematic course of mental training. Ignorance is relative. Illiteracy is absolute. We have statistics of illiteracy, but no statistics of ignorance are possible. Antonyms: educated, instructed, learned, sage, skilled, trained, well-informed, wise. Imagination. Synonyms: fancy, fantasy, with an F, fantasy, with PH. The old psychology treated of the reproductive imagination, which simply reproduces the images that the mind has in any way acquired, and the productive imagination, which modifies and combines mental images so as to produce what is virtually new. To this reproductive imagination, President Noah Porter and others have given the name of fantasy (ph) or fantasy (f), many psychologists preferring the former spelling. Fantasy or fantasy (ph or f), so understood, presents numerous and varied images, often combining them into new forms with exceeding vividness, yet without any true constructive power, but with the mind adrift, blindly and passively following the laws of association, and with reason and will in torpor. The mental images being perhaps as varied and as vivid, but also as purposeless and unsystematized as the visual images in a kaleidoscope. Such fantasy, often loosely called imagination, appears in dreaming, reverie, somnambulism, and intoxication. Fantasy in ordinary usage simply denotes capricious or erratic fancy, as appears in the adjective fantastic. Imagination and fancy differ from fantasy in bringing the images and their combinations under the control of the will. Imagination is the broader and higher term, including fancy. Imagination is the act or power of imaging or of re-imaging objects of perception or thought, of combining the products of knowledge in modified, new, or ideal forms, the creative or constructive power of the mind, while fancy is the act or power of forming pleasing, graceful, whimsical, or odd mental images, or of combining them with little regard to rational processes of construction, imagination in its lower form. Both fancy and imagination recombine and modify mental images. Either may work with the other's materials. Imagination may glorify the tiniest flower. Fancy may play around a mountain or a star. The one great distinction between them is that fancy is superficial, while imagination is deep, essential, spiritual. Wordsworth, who was the first clearly to draw the distinction between the fancy and the imagination, states it as follows: To aggregate and to associate, to evoke and to combine, belong as well to the imagination as to fancy, but either the materials evoked and combined are different, or they are brought together under a different law and for a different purpose. Fancy does not require that the materials which she makes use of should be susceptible of changes in their constitution from her touch, and where they admit of modification, it is enough for her purpose if it be slight, limited, and evanescent. Directly the reverse of these are the desires and demands of the imagination. She recoils from everything but the plastic, the pliant, and the indefinite. She leaves it to fancy to describe Queen Mab as coming, in shape no bigger than an agate stone on the forefinger of an alderman. Having to speak of stature, she does not tell you that her gigantic angel was as tall as Pompey's pillar, much less that he was 12 cubits or 1200 cubits high, or that his dimensions equaled those of Teneriffe or Atlas. Because these, and if they were 1,000,000 times as high, it would be the same, are bounded. The expression is, his stature reached the sky, the illimitable firmament. When the imagination frames a comparison, a sense of the truth of the likeness from the moment that it is perceived grows, and continues to grow, upon the mind. The resemblance depending less upon outline of form and feature than upon expression and effect, less upon casual and outstanding than upon inherent and internal properties. Poetical Works, Preface to edition of 1815, page 646. So, as far as actual images are concerned, both fancy and imagination are limited to the materials furnished by the external world. It is remarkable that among all the representations of gods or demigods, fiends and demons, griffins and chimeras, the human mind has never invented one organ or attribute that is not presented in human or animal life. The lion may have a human head and an eagle's wings and claws, but in the various features individually there is absolutely nothing new. But imagination can transcend the work of fancy, and compare an image drawn from the external world with some spiritual truth born in the mind itself, or infuse a series of images with such a spiritual truth, molding them as needed for its more vivid expression. The imagination modifies images and gives unity to variety. It sees all things in one. There is the epic imagination, the perfection of which is in Milton, and the dramatic, of which Shakespeare is the absolute master. Coleridge, Table Talk, June 23, 34. Fancy keeps the material image prominent and clear, and works not only with it, but for it. Imagination always uses the material object as the minister of something greater than itself, and often almost loses the object in the spiritual idea with which she has associated it, and for which alone she values it. Fancy flits about the surface, and is airy and playful, sometimes petty and sometimes false. Imagination goes to the heart of things, and is deep, earnest, serious, and seeks always and everywhere for essential truth. Fancy sets off, variegates, and decorates. Imagination transforms and exalts. Fancy delights and entertains. Imagination moves and thrills. Imagination is not only poetic or literary, but scientific, philosophical, and practical. By imagination the architect sees the unity of a building not yet begun, and the inventor sees the unity and varied interactions of a machine never yet constructed, even a unity that no human eye ever can see, since when the machine is in actual motion one part may hide the connecting parts, and yet all keep the unity of the inventor's thought. By imagination a Newton sweeps sun, planets, and stars into unity with the earth, and the apple that is drawn irresistibly to its surface, and sees them all within the circle of one grand law. Science, philosophy, and mechanical invention have little use for fancy, but the creative, penetrative power of imagination is to them the breath of life and the condition of all advances and success. See also fancy, idea. End of section 35. Recording by Estelle Jobson, Rome, Italy.